But I think our panel and the panelists with their presentation is going to be interesting for you guys. So we're going to talk in the next 2 hours about market trends and business models, a bit shifting away from regulatory and policy views. Have I think a good panel, a global panel looking into Asia. Looking into Europe and also looking from a industry perspective, but also from an analyst perspective. So I think it's a good selection, giving you a nice overview of what's currently happening and also kind of outlook where the market is going to head. From a structure, we're going to have 5 presentations. 2 of them going to be remote, so it's also kind of being progressive, not having everyone on the panel right here. So I think that shouldn't be a problem. And at the very end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So as before, already prepare your questions so we can discuss afterwards with the panelists and have a good discussion then. So I will hand over now to Steve from Skyworth, who's going to talk a bit about smart TVs in the Chinese market.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So it is my pleasure to take this opportunity to introduce our traditional manufacturing company transformed to an OTT content aggregators. It is a very successful story. What is Kukai? It is actually a brand. It is an end-to-end solution. And it is also a service from a subscriber's point of view. I'm going to talk about 2 key points. So one is the user base. The other is monetization. As we all know, for any kind of internet success services, user scale is the key to success. So we say user scale matters. Skyworth designed and manufactured the first internet TV in 2009. So during the first years, our sales of internet TV is not very good. So until 2013, we developed our Kuka systems and renamed our internet TV as Kuka. In the same year, in China, that Xiaomi TV and Le TV also been announced. So start from that year, smart TV service started booming in China because of better broadband infrastructure and abundant online contents. In 2016, we signed a strategic cooperation with Philips TV China. Then we signed with Panasonic TV China. So by the end of 2017, we signed another provincial cable operator companies as JSCN, which is a major China provincial cable broadcast companies. So also by the end of 2017, our smart TV terminals reached 30 million. Now our active smart TV users is more than 25 millions. And we have more than 9 million daily active users, which close to 10 millions daily. Our monthly active users is more than 15 millions. So since the first release of our Kukai systems, we keep enhancing and improving the system to provide the user better and up-to-date services. At the same time, we greatly boost our big data and advertising platform as well as our operating supporting systems, which greatly increased our capability in monetization. So this diagram is our cloud platform structures. As you can see that the yellow blocks is the function module of our systems. We provide the subscriber management system, content management system, and the operating supporting system, and AAA and big data and platform. The blue block is actually our content, internet content partners. In China, they are Tencent, HE, Youku, who are the top 3 online video content provider in China. Also, we integrate the service from cable television operators to provide our user with the linear TV and catch-up services. Our system integrate with our partner system seamlessly to provide our user with the seamless services. And also, please be noticed that the content delivery network service is from our partners, from our content partners. Our system is designed with the idea of cross-platform, cross-terminal, openness, modularization, which makes it easy to integrate with the system of our CP partners and our operator partners. There are quite a few partners who have adopted the Kukai system and sharing the Kukai services of the ecosystems. So they are like Philip TV China, Panasonic TV, and Panda, and so on. We also have some provincial cable broadcast operators as our strategic partners, such as JSCN, who has 26 million cable TV subscribers. It is the biggest provincial cable TV operators in China. So for our strategic partners, we open the platform to each other for sharing users, contents, and operations. My second key point is monetization. So with our huge subscriber basis, how are we going to monetize from our user asset? So this is a picture of our operation dashboard, which actually is a huge display wall in our operation centers. From it, we can check many key operation data real time. For user analysis, we can see our user distribution diagram per region, per province, per age, and so on. We can also check from the revenue analysis, we can also check revenue from multi-dimensional views. We can also check from the region, per province, per contents, per time, and so on. So we have various kind of operation data here, so our operation people may adjust our pertinent operation strategy to optimize our operations. So actually our business model, we have two business models. One is to C, the other is to B. So for to C business model, actually we are using revenue sharing models with our content partners. So from this content revenue, monthly content revenue diagram, we can see that in January and February of 2017, which has much higher revenue than other months. That is because these 2 months is during the China Spring Festival. So people stayed at home, they spend more time watching online videos. The same reason is for October, which is China national holiday. Our operation supporting system provide comprehensive capabilities from data analysis, user understanding, product packaging, price managing, and promotion activity, etc. One of the key index in our operation is active rate of subscribers. We do everything we can to keep this index high. Our 2C market strategies, we are trying to integrate all content source in China market, which forms our media source libraries. We then package this content into different product packages and sell into different user group. So what we are doing is we are trying to become a super aggregate. We want to aggregate all online content to enable our subscribers to make one-stop search and consumption of various kind of contents. Our to B business model is actually we are doing is advertising. Yeah, it is advertising. So actually, before middle of 2016, our advertising revenue is very limited. So after we upgrade our advertisement platform and strengthened our advertisement operation, the advertisement revenue increased significantly in 2017. As we can see from this diagram, in 2017, the monthly advertising revenue is almost equivalent to the revenue of content selling. So we have three kinds of business advertisement. One is TV booth advertisement. so which is displayed during the boot time. This is a big chunk of our revenues. Another is ordinary commercial advertisement. We also have one called the new media advertisement, which actually is a e-commerce. We have an online store to do e-commerce, to do online shopping. So we have three ways of sell our advertisement. So one way is our direct advertisement sales. The other is via agent. The third is through our e-commerce. This picture shows our major advertising customers. As we can see from this picture, there are quite a few world famous companies are doing advertisement in our platform. That is the all of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve. That was very interesting. I already noted some questions, but we're gonna have later on. Just to mention that after this day, Skyworth, the company Steve's working with, is going to sponsor the reception afterwards at 6 p.m. Very good. So we're going to hand over now to Nicholas, who's joining us from Liberty Global Amsterdam. So I'm going to hand over to Nicholas, who's going to be hopefully available remotely. And as long as they're figuring out technology, so there's going to be a short Q&A session right after the presentation from Nicholas. So you can shoot right away if there are any questions afterwards.
Hi, Bern. You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I'm going to hand over.
Can you see my screen as well? Hello?
We can hear you. Can you hear us as
well?
well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But can you please confirm that you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So, well, thank you, Bern, for giving me the opportunity to participate in this panel. So welcome, everybody. Sorry I'm not with you today, but I will do my best to give you a good story. So my name is Marcelo of Moreno. I'm Director of Product Development at Liberty Global. So Liberty Global is the largest international cable company with 22 million customer base. Our core footprint is in Europe. And I'm here today to share with you our view on how the world of connectivity is evolving. So essentially, first of all, it will start with our customers and our users. So over the last few years, at Liberty, we've been spending a lot of time conducting anthropological research to go at the core of what our customer wants. Because if you want to design and deliver the right product, you basically need to start with the needs. The research was done over multiple countries to ensure that we would capture a representative view of our 22 million customer base. So what did we find out, essentially? So what we found out and observed is that we've moved on from the ice age of having a single connected computer in the middle of the living room, and where essentially our life was orchestrated around fixed moments, so fixed activities, fixed pattern, where we would have a dinner at the table at 7 p.m. and everybody gets together. This used to be the case and maybe still is the case in some of our user base, but essentially what we have observed and found out is essentially the fact that we have evolved to much more flexible way of living. So people are busy. They want to do everything at any point in time and space, essentially. This has translated into a very dynamic life, and essentially we're trying to help our customer to lead the life they want and have products that fit their needs. So essentially, this dynamic or say fluid way of life is full of moments. And as a user and as a customer, we basically, as a person, I never want to miss one. So why is that so? Essentially, I think it can be summarized in a few points. So people are always on, always connected. They always have something to do, and we basically want to keep up with everything around us, keep up with our friends and family, and we have a need for constant and great connectivity. And that basically happens when we are at home, but also on the go. More and more everywhere, including in our car, where now most cars are going to be equipped with internet services, giving you everything from direction, but also connectivity to the rest of your life, and a more integrated experience across different ecosystems. It also happened on holidays. I'm sure you're all familiar with going on holidays, and at the reception, the first question that customers are going to ask is basically what's the Wi-Fi code, and that's just the world in which we live in. So how do we adapt to this? Essentially, what do customers do all the time? Well, mostly they binge. We have seen an enormous increase of the video traffic across all our markets, across all our networks. Part of it are driven by our own video products, linear TV and video on demand, but also a lot of this is coming out of over-the-top players, and here I'm showing the crown from Netflix, but there are many others that are competing in this space. We basically want to be able to check what's going on, and these kind of devices are used by our customers to check when they are on the go if the family is okay, or more simply, making photos of the cat while sleeping at home. We basically use that to ensure that we are going to tailor our environment to our mood, and our mood are ever changing, so to make sure that basically we can allow and tailor the atmosphere around it. And a lot of products have come to the market and are now being connected to our network. People game an awful lot, and that is a very rapidly growing portion of our user use cases, and our networks are not necessarily well serving that kind of category. So what can we do about that? People tune. Most of the sound systems are now connected because we want to have the music that, again, as part of our fluid life, is going to follow us in every room and in every house. And of course, people chat, get in touch with their tribe, so to say. You always want to know what's going on with your friends, family, kids, and this is essentially best exemplified by the amount of social media tools that we basically all use, from Facebook to WhatsApp and Snapchat for the younger generation, and so on and so forth. So what is it that essentially customers are asking? Because now I've just listed a long list of essentially use cases, but there are a couple of underlying needs that have come very clearly in the research that we have conducted. Essentially, reliability is core to everything, and this concept of reliable connectivity has become the largest driver for customers to switch between operators and to basically seek for a better solution. One interesting fact that came out of the research is the concept of 90% connectivity. Customer told us we're basically connected well 90% of the time, and that covered two angles of it. The coverage aspect of it. I don't have Wi-Fi in my attic, or I do not have connectivity when I get outside of my house, and also the quality, which is essentially linked with the reliability angle. What else? Basically, people want unlimited data and the peace of mind that they will never have a bill shock at the end of the month because the data, they have exceeded their data bundle and essentially they are going to be charged. And that is something that happens within the mobile industry, while within the fixed industry, we still have unlimited data, except for a few market, and that trend is something that customers do desire, and so we need to realize inside of the industry whether we want to keep it like this or not. People want secure. There is a growing concern and growing awareness from customer standpoint with regards to their data and the privacy of it and the security of it. So we need to ensure that we are going to deliver across all these items. Otherwise, the customer will not trust us to be the right partner and the reliable partner for that service. People want ultra fast, and as I would say from cable industry standpoint, we are pretty much in the lead, which is great. Today, we are still in the lead across almost all our markets, and we are making significant investment to ensure that the speed leadership, albeit the incremental value that customer gets out of the speed increase that you get when you go above 200 MB are less than they used to be, but there is still a demand for a fast service linked with the fact that customers are used to have everything immediately across all products that they use. Mobile first, that's an obvious thing, but needs to be called out. The traditional model of having a website where you do the ordering, etc., is basically gone. We need to deliver a mobile-first experience across all the touch points and across all the customer journey steps that our customers are using and experiencing while being with us. The ecosystem is key, and the boundless concept is essentially linked with the fact that there is no longer a border of home, outside of the home, or when I go to my friend. All that is part of the playground of our users, and basically they want to have access to the internet and to have all their services with them everywhere they go. Maybe one day on the moon. So how can we address this, and what have we done at Liberty Global, and what do we believe will make a difference to better serve our customers? First of all, we will help customer by bringing fast or the fastest internet service, the more robust and the more reliable. So we are in the lead in essentially rolling out 1 gig capacity across many of our markets, but above and beyond the sheer speed that will be delivered to the home, we strongly believe that, and we have made significant investment in increasing the capacity to ensure that all the use cases that our customers are doing are going to basically work concurrently and seamlessly. So that's the first thing that we are going to happen. Second, we'll help our customer with our in-home connectivity in order to get rid of that statement of the 90% coverage from a Wi-Fi coverage standpoint. So we've developed a suite of hardware, both box and boosters, which ensure that you can have a full blanket wall-to-wall or attic-to-basement coverage in order to make sure that irrespective where you are always best connected across all your favorite devices. And to be clear, the insistence on Wi-Fi is coming out of the realization that as much as we sell broadband, we are not actually selling broadband. We're selling Wi-Fi to our customers, because Wi-Fi has become the first medium of connectivity, and most devices nowadays are basically don't have a wire. So Wi-Fi is where we need to win the battle against our competition. Next, we are going to introduce the concept of smart Wi-Fi, which essentially is putting magic in our gateways and box and boosters to ensure that all the connected devices are always going to get the highest possible throughput and the best possible customer experience. It requires significant orchestration at devices level, which we have decided to own to ensure that our customer get a really good experience. Next, we are also going to expose our customer with essentially a multi-screen user interface, empowering them to tailor, control, and manage their connected life via intuitive interfaces. We're trying to keep things very, very simple and very easy for customer to help them to facilitate their life as opposed to make it more complex. Next, we will also help our customers with essentially a suite of cloud-based services designed to manage 4 core pillars of their life. First, people, and by that I mean the member of the household that have different needs at different times. Usage, what are these people doing at the home? Are they gamers? Are they casual surfer? Are they heavy-duty downloaders? All that needs to be managed via well-articulated services around the usage. Third, time. Life is made out of moments, as I mentioned before, and there are some precious moments, for instance, bedtime, where you may want to give tools for parents to disconnect the children from the internet and to make sure that they make it on time because they have to go to school tomorrow. So how do you do that? We have services for this. And finally, devices, that goes without saying. Our devices are often the extension of ourselves. We spend huge amount of time with our mobile phone doing different type of things. So we basically want to give tools that help customers to manage these 4 pillars in order to make sure that they can tailor each moment of their life. And last but not least, of course, the smart home, it has become, it is a growing thing across all industries. The business models are still questionable. However, it is the fact that the smart home is now addressing new suites of new needs and new use cases, which basically need to come on top of the current connectivity solutions that customers are using. Subsequently, how do we orchestrate the smart home together with connectivity, and how do we augment our connectivity stack with a smart home proposition? That's something that we're going to help our customer with. What's next? Well, we believe that voice will have a major impact on how services are delivered to customers. We have already seen that voice has significantly increased the stickiness to ecosystem and increasing recurring use when introduced within the home. So voice across the industry, and that goes beyond, I would say, the realm of connectivity, will have major impact, and that's something that we should all keep an eye on. Next, predictiveness, my apologies. Essentially, technology like artificial intelligence are making giant strides in introducing more predictive and essentially recommendation engines, which are going to help customers to live in a world where the ecosystem is delivering solutions for them as opposed to them writing the rules. So this is something that is going to bring major improvement from product standpoint in the industry. And the last trend that I would like to call out is essentially the concept of tailored service. Essentially, it's very simple. Every house, family, and every consumption habit is different, and our industry needs to strive in tailoring our solution to each individual, because this is what's happening via the over-the-top players that we're mostly competing with. So subsequently, we need to endeavor at potentially changing our business model in order to be able to deliver this tailored experience and stay relevant to our customer. So with all this, essentially, we believe that we're going to help customers to deliver full peace of mind with an ecosystem around them where everything around them works, which will basically help customers to spend more time and focus on the magical moment that I mentioned before. Thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. So that was really interesting, and also coming from a consumer perspective is always good. Putting that into the foreground. I'm looking into the audience. Are there any questions for Nicolas? If not, I do have some. So I'm wondering. I mean, this now. Forward looking into, let's say, the future. My question is around how far are we down the road? What's already reality? Looking from an industry perspective, are those services already available? But also from a consumer perspective, how is acceptance, and what are criteria that it's going to be? Talking about smart home, what you just mentioned, to become mass market.
Yeah, so most of the items that are covered in the presentation are reality. These are things that are about to be deployed in our footprint, or items that will be there within, say, 12 months from now. I think that the real question here is for traditional internet service provider like Liberty Global within the cable space. We are essentially facing completely new realm of competition. Our competition now is essentially exemplified in the GAFA, Google, Amazon, Facebook, where they have understood that in order to further expand their customer base and to increase their relevance towards customer, they need to aggregate and to harvest more data. So all these players have constructed a product roadmap which is essentially there to, via their over-the-top solution, introduce suites of hardware and services which are going to slowly but surely put us as a dumb pipe. So is this something that we wish to become? We at Liberty Global have clearly made the decision that we don't want that to happen, and consequently it's very important for us to build this very relevant ecosystem in order to be able to compete with these over-the-top players. To your point about the smart home, I think the success or the failure of the smart home is going to happen anyway. I don't think, as I mentioned in my presentation, that the business model for smart home is very clear, because if you look at all the players around the world, there are very few that have cracked a business model generating very high revenue. However, we believe that by weaving smart homes, so new use cases, so on top of connectivity, you basically want suite of services which are going to help your connectivity needs, or to manage your light system or security or whatnot. These new use cases need to be weaved in and integrated fully with the rest of your product, because this is the only way to deliver immersive experience. And we believe that because we own the network, we own the last mile, we own the home, we own the connectivity within the home, we have an opportunity to essentially play in that space and to be relevant against, again, the GAFA of these words.
Thanks a lot for your answers. I'm just looking again into the audience. Any further questions? Yeah, there's one question.
Hello, it's David Wood from the EBU here. It's concerning voice activation, this issue. What is the role of standards standards bodies in voice activation? Who should be doing what? Or is this all going to be just left to the west coast of the US? Or will there ever be standard voice activation systems? Will it be provided by cable networks? So just a conjecture question, if I may, about where does all this business of voice activation go as far as standards bodies are concerned? Thank you.
Very good question. I will not comment on the standard and what all legal bodies around the world are doing to harmonize this, because I simply do not have a clear view, and it's not my area of expertise. I will more give you my product view on the matter. It's essentially all about customer uptake. Many of these West Coast players have delivered a solution to market. There are clearly two ecosystems that are ahead of the pack. One is slightly ahead of the other, and I think this will dictate what ecosystem, what voice service will basically be used going forward. It's going to be difficult to regulate once you have already millions of homes with an install base and people that are enjoying these services on a day-to-day basis. So I think the bodies, the legal bodies and regulators will have to an extent play catch up, because the deployment is already there and is expanding every single day.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. I think we're going to wrap up here. Thanks for your participation and your interesting thoughts about what's going to happen around connectivity in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So I'm going to hand over now to Maria from IHS Market, who's going to talk about cable in Europe. It's your floor.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here today with all of you. So thank you very much to the ITU for inviting me to be here today. I'm going to speak about cable trends, and in particular, cable trends in Europe, and how, thanks through innovation and constant investment in the network, cable has managed to grow in a very competitive landscape. Who are we? What is IHS Market? IHS Market is a research market company based headquarters in London, and we are more than 12,000 people covering every aspect in research. In technology, in particular, we have 400 analysts all around the world covering mobile, telecoms, media, advertising, everything in the TMT space. I'm very pleased and honored to say that we have been working with Cable Europe for the last 17 years, producing this report called the European Broadband Cable. So thank you to Matthias and Paulo that are here in the audience for their support, for trusting us, and for every single cable operator that year after year they're telling us their concerns, their challenges, and how they can survive in this very competitive place. Let's just start putting things in context. What's happening with pay TV? Here I didn't put the US. This is just the rest of the world. Asia Pacific, Eastern Europe, Latin America, Middle East, Western Europe. Pay TV is growing. There is no cord cutting. Of course, some operators have been affected. Of course, some companies have lost subscribers. But in general, pay TV is growing in the world. Now I added US. Yes, decline. Pay TV has been declining, cord cutting. But there are many reasons for this cord cutting in the US. There are many reasons, starting by the high price cable TV people pay in the US for cable TV, more than $80 a month. So it makes sense that people want to cancel cable TV and choose an alternative, cheaper route. Then we have cord nevers, those people that they move new to a flat and decided not to take pay TV and move straight to an online provider. But these are very particular situations that they're happening in the US. So here, with this map of the world, we can see this even better. $86 just for cable television in the US. In Western Europe, it's only 23. Eastern Europe, even cheaper, 6. Then Asia, I have here $7, but of course it's a very fragmented market. Each country is different from the others. So China has a very low ARPU for cable, but Japan again has a very high ARPU. So even in countries in Asia, the situation is very different. So going again to the price, why cord cutting has not affected Europe so much, we have here one of the biggest cable providers in Europe, Virgin Media in the UK, £48 a month, you get a triple play package. You get television, you have telephony, you have internet. If you decided to cut it, I don't want cable anymore, and you start creating your own bundles and taking broadband from this provider, then Netflix, then these other services, you will spend more. So why you will do that? Why not to keep your cable subscription and maybe choose another online player on the top? No reason to cancel. So that's why in Europe, pay TV is still growing. And many Europeans still receive the pay TV via cable. So cable television is really, really important. We shouldn't underestimate the importance of cable television in Europe. Of course, things have changed a lot. So if we see here the trend from 2007, when more than half of the pay TV subscriptions were cable, the situation has changed a lot. We have now all the online players. Here in 2017, we have more than 50 million subscriptions to online, but cable still has 55.5 million subscribers. Very, very important. It's still the main way of receiving pay TV content in Europe. So online for us has not cut the cord. The opposite. Many countries, for example Spain, traditionally considered a pirate country. People don't pay for TV. Thanks to online services, they are now paying for content. But it's not all rosy, of course, and even for television, for cable, there has been declines. Cable has suffered a lot from other providers, and they have been losing subscribers since the year 2009. Recently, the decline is softer, 2016, and our estimations for 2017 reflect that the decline is now not so high as it used to be in 2010-11, so things have been stabilized. And very important, despite cable TV subscribers declining, total revenues are going up. Total ARPU is going up. Why? Thanks to the digitalization, thanks to digital services, thanks to consumers consuming more packages, taking more advanced products. So that's the importance of cable TV. Yes, you are losing some clients. Some of them are mainly they were cable analog, very low ARPU, so no big drama losing them because you are keeping your high value customer, those that they pay more for your services. And if we put cable in context with other things that cable operators offer, television, internet, telephony, because cable is more than just television, ARPU is going high thanks to the power of bundle. Cable operators have grown ARPU quite a lot in the last 5 years. So we start saying that cable has been losing subscribers. Where are these people going? Where do they go? The situation is very different in different regions in the world. In Western Europe, we see here a massive growth in IPTV, in telcos, and a decline in cable. Now it's very difficult to separate what is cable, what is telco. Most telcos are buying cable. So even for us to make these statistics, it's very difficult to say what is pure cable, what is pure telco. But there you go. Because of this competition, this migration cable to telco, now they're integrating. And North America, as we mentioned, massive decline in cable. And in Latin America, Middle East, and Asia Pacific, very healthy growth. All the platforms are growing. Cable is growing, satellite is growing, everything is doing quite well. And very quickly comparing here on what happened in the last 12 months, these figures are still estimations since we don't have data for every single company yet. But broadband is the star performing cable. Broadband has driven growth, and digital TV has been driving growth. So if we have to mention 2 drivers in cable, I will say digital television and broadband. Telephony has been declining, and a bit of cable TV as well. So broadband is critical. I think Matthias mentioned this in the morning, in order to give broadband access to Europeans. Thanks to high-speed broadband, more European homes have access to the next generation access of broadband, high speeds, high quality, reliability in the broadband. It used to be that DOCSIS 3 was higher than VDSL and fiber to the home, fiber to the premises. Now the situation has changed in the last 2 years, but still cable plays a critical role to provide fast broadband. In fact, cable is doing a better job than telcos in the sense that most of the cable have been upgraded to DOCSIS 3.0, but not all the DSL connections are VDSL. So cable has been performing better, migrating people to fast internet, fast broadband. It's not a surprise that now half of the revenues for cable come from telcos. Still the single unit providing more revenues is television. 45% of revenues in cable comes from TV, but followed very close by cable internet with 35%. So now another very interesting topic. What about content? What cable operators should do? Should they be just a pipe? Do they have to invest in content? What is the best strategy? Obviously, content is very important. People want to watch content, they want to consume programs, but there are different strategies from pay TV operators. Should they invest in exclusive content, in original programming, innovation, providing box sets? What they should do? What is the best way to attract customers and reduce churn? All pay TV operators, in particular telcos, have been investing in original content. So we have all seen stories about Telefónica investing now in their own series. They have one called La Peste that has been really successful, more than almost $2 million per episode. Liberty Global, through acquisition, All3 Media and Lionsgate, Sky in the UK. So all these telcos, cable, satellite operators are, in one way or another, investing in content. But how much is a series? How much is in dollars is to produce a big hit? It's not cheap, it's a lot of money. I mean, we know about Game of Thrones, 10 million per episode. We know series at Netflix, Marco Polo, 9 million, or 2.5 for Narcos. And even spending these massive amounts of money, you don't secure success. Marco Polo, for example, in Netflix, really failed despite this 9 million per episode. And then Movistar with this 1.8 for La Peste is doing really, really well. But this is already 3 times more what any other provider in Spain was used to spend for a series. But these players, like Netflix and Amazon, we see constantly headlines of how much they're spending in content. 7 billion now for Netflix in 2017. They just announced 7.5 to 8 billion in the next year. Amazon as well spending a fortune in content. Every year they're spending more and more. It's a constant content arms race between these providers. The others are more or less stable. They're not really investing. They're almost flat in what they're investing. The new online players are the ones investing more and more in content. And it's not only them. There are also new players like Facebook, Apple, all announcing the amount of more than $1 billion in content. But why they can do this? They can do this because these online players are in more than 200 territories. So it's very easy for Netflix and Amazon to spend this content when they can distribute it among all these countries. Liberty Global in 13 or others, they will have more difficult to monetize that content. But doesn't mean that they cannot have the content. In fact, cable operators have been very clever making agreements with operators like Netflix and having Netflix on board. So it's not a fight between it's them or us. The strength of cable is to be an aggregator of content. So cable can have all the content they want. You don't need to spend a fortune in a series. Just have that channel or that company who provides you that series. So there is no need to put yourself in debt, have agreements. Many companies, as I have here some examples, have done it. Vodafone in Spain, Comgen in Sweden, Liberty. They all realize that there is no reason to fight. If people want to watch it, make them available in your network. So just to finish, some conclusion recommendations. Cable companies should continue to invest in infrastructure to provide reliable connections, to provide fast broadband, to make sure that their customers can receive any content they want from any provider via the network, and then they will stay, they will not churn. Also make frenemies with online channels to add value to your subscription. You don't need to invest massive amounts in content, you can just have partnerships. And partnerships can be beyond investing in the series, it can be even buying or acquiring content companies. Of course, don't forget about the mobile first generation. People do want to consume content everywhere, not just in the home. They want to watch any content anywhere. So make sure you're prepared to offer that. And of course, TV and high ARPU is possible, providing all these advanced services. And last, I think it was mentioned before as well, invest in new video technologies, metadata, voice, personalization, smart home. There are lots of opportunities, there are lots of ways in which cable can monetize more what they have. They can add so much more value, but you need to invest in this kind of services. That's it. Thank you very much. If you have questions or you want any of these slides, feel free to email me.
Thanks a lot, Maria. Great insights, great data points. I think that's giving for the later discussion some valuable input. And we're going to move on now with additional data from, I think, your former colleague, Guy, who's joining us from London, also from remotely from Ampere Analysis, talking about broader horizon, the cable's position in a multiplay market. Guy?
Actually, I'm sitting in actually for a colleague.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm sitting in for a colleague, Richard Broughton, who can't be there today, I'm afraid. He's fallen slightly ill. Nothing serious, you'll be glad to hear. But I'm going to try to take you through some slightly different trends in the cable industry. What I thought it would be interesting to look at is the way that the cable industry has had to evolve and had to keep pace with change over the last 15 or 20 years, and then drill into some of the behavior patterns that are changing and will present ongoing challenges for the cable industry as we move forward through the next 5 or 10 years. So if we think about the cable market back in 2005, good 15 years ago or so, what we were generally seeing in most markets was that cable fulfilled or sat in rather a nice position. It was high penetration in a number of countries, often the only or certainly the major form of multi-channel television distribution. And it had a reasonable ARPU, averaging around $50 per month, although of course skewed very heavily by the high ARPU in the USA that Maria was talking about a few minutes ago. If we scan forward to 2016, what you'll have noticed as I move the slide forward is that there's been a general flattening of that trend. So what we've seen is that penetration has dropped in many of those markets, but of course ARPU has gone up. So that's a positive and a negative. Of course penetration has dropped because cable has faced increasing competition from new entrants, principally IPTV, but in certain regions that has been a satellite-driven competitive threat. How it's evolved and how it's kept pace, however, is with growing ARPU through service addition. And really, when we think about the competitive positioning of cable, that service addition has been key to how they've competed and how they will need to continue to compete in the industry going forward as we see it facing some of the biggest changes in its history. One of the other driving forces over the last decade or 15 years or so has been consolidation. As cable has invested in network infrastructure, consolidation has become increasingly important. Scale becomes a very valuable asset when you're building out physical infrastructure. And if we put a selection of global markets on a scale, you can see where that consolidation has been most beneficial, where cable has highly consolidated position and maintains a strong cable share of the pay TV market in the top right. So we have some of the Benelux countries like the Netherlands, Luxembourg, the Scandinavian countries, some of the Central European countries like Romania and the Czech Republic. Slightly less attractive, high consolidation, but a weaker cable position. So countries like the UK would be on that scale, Spain as well, where there's really only one or two operators, and cable fulfills often a second-tier position to a dominant pay TV operator. And then we can look at low consolidation but strong cable position, where that is also potentially attractive because, of course, it opens up the opportunity to benefit from further consolidation, but cable maintains a strong market position. So countries like Germany, Canada, China, India, and the USA would fall into that category. And we're seeing ongoing consolidation in pretty much all of those markets. So we have very much a mix of different situations with regard to where cable stands today. What we can see, however, and I think Maria also alluded to this, is the diversification of revenue stream and the increasing importance of broadband in particular. So cable has very much been a leader in terms of next generation broadband access, and that is becoming an increasingly important part of its revenue stream. Indeed, in the Central European countries, where access costs for television are notably lower than in the West, broadband is already contributing around 50% to the overall blended ARPU mix. So a significant contribution and very beneficial in general to the cable industry, those investments in hardware and infrastructure paying off. What we can see is a very clear relationship between the speed of the broadband on offer and the uptake of that broadband. So quite simply, the faster the broadband you offer, the higher uptake we tend to see. There's a pretty straight line correlation there. So broadband and fast broadband is a competitive differentiator and a competitive benefit in terms of penetration for the cable industry. But interestingly, when we speak to consumers about what drives their decision for taking a broadband service, speed is only important where the infrastructure is not so well developed. So speed is an issue in the consumer's mind when they don't have it. When you have a wide selection of good infrastructure and high speed, speed as a decision maker drops down. It becomes a given, and other factors become important. So price competition begins to kick in as the speed actually goes up, and that becomes a more important factor in the consumer decision. And then, of course, other factors like content access and the ability to stream video become increasingly important as the speed goes up. Elsewhere, so in those markets where perhaps speed is a deciding factor for broadband decision, they are less developed infrastructure markets, we can see that mobile is increasingly fulfilling a role for broadband infrastructure and for streaming of video. So obviously mobile data volumes are increasing worldwide, and video is becoming a significant part of that stream as people use their mobiles increasingly for streaming video and accessing services such as Netflix. And that's reflected exactly in the way that people, or the device that people use to watch streamed video. So we can again see in the less developed markets, the blue bars are much, much higher. So Saudi, Turkey, Brazil, etc. Very high smartphone usage for video, whereas in the more developed infrastructure markets, people are using a larger screen, a PC or a TV. So infrastructure very significant in the behavior patterns around the consumption of streamed online video, which of course is becoming the next competitive battleground for the cable industry and the wider traditional market as a whole. Streamed video, OTT, catch-up, incredibly important in maintaining competitive positioning in today's market. And what we can see by examining broadcaster catch-up services is that they allow channels to regain an otherwise lost audience. So we can see that broadband or catch-up service, broadband delivered catch-up and stream services are delivering a broadcast kick, an audience kick, to the tune of about 9% in the UK, who would otherwise perhaps be lost to a non-broadcast platform, perhaps a Netflix or one of the competing OTT services. And in France, similar levels, about a 4% audience boost given by the provision of catch-up services. We can also see that where a viewer of a TV channel also makes use of that channel's associated catch-up service, they have a much higher view, a much higher opinion of that channel as a brand than those who are not using the catch-up service. So having streaming video, even for traditional linear channels, is increasingly important to maintain share in today's competitive market. We can also see that streaming video services of traditional players, so TV everywhere and broadcaster catch-up, are hitting an older demographic than perhaps the SVOD services, the social video, and of course pirate sites that might be driving and pulling away a younger audience. So streaming incredibly important in maintaining satisfaction and access to that slightly older, late 30s, early 40s and into their 50s audience. So they are the core audience or the larger proportion of audience for those types of services, whereas younger people, of course, are skewing towards SVOD and pirate services. Viewing behaviour is also very segmented by age. So we can see a lovely trend here. As you go up from the x-axis, the peak at prime time is an older age group. So the youngest audience, the light blue in the graph, are watching the least amount of television in prime time. The oldest audience, 55 to 64, are watching the most TV in prime time. So a very segmented viewer base that distributors, channel distributors, cable operators need to start addressing through their service proposition. What's interesting though is that we can see that when we think about on-demand services or non-linear viewing, of course that graph is completely reversed. So the older category are dropping down to the lower viewing, the younger are the higher viewing. But that's not the really interesting thing on this graph. The really interesting thing, and we see this across multiple measures that we make, is that on-demand, non-linear, SVOD, catch-up viewing is extending the prime time and extending the peaks where people are engaging with television. So if we think back just 15 or 20 years, everything was about prime time. Now we can see that certain devices, certain types of video have a prime time at lunchtime or at the breakfast table or in late afternoon. And generally streaming services are extending into a wider number of hours the engagement with television. So this is something again that cable operators need to be thinking about addressing. Because what it means is that while, of course, SVOD and other types of non-linear and streamed video can be cannibalistic and are indeed cannibalistic on linear viewing as a whole, they are also additive across the day and throughout the day and to the total viewing time, which when you add them back in, of course, is not going down, it's going up. So it's the linear element that is going down. And finally, just to leave, I guess, the presentation with a question, because it's really the fundamental question that the industry and the cable industry in particular needs to address. Of course, the downside of all these behavioural changes is that they do eventually feed back into the revenue stream. So if we look at Scandinavia, where next generation viewing is particularly prevalent, are very advanced in terms of their behaviour and engagement with non-linear, we can see that as that linear viewing starts to decline, there is a knockback effect, a knock-on effect on the traditional TV advertising revenue, and that follows a very clear path with the viewing. So readdressing and re-engaging that audience. Cable has a role in terms of service proposition to bring that audience back by providing them the services that they want. And I guess the solution to that, the answer to how they do that, is the fundamental question that the industry is facing as we move into the next years of this decade. And with that question, I guess I will say thank you very much and offer myself to you for any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Guy, for your presentation and this additional data points, and that was very complementary to what Maria was presenting. So very interesting. So I'm looking again into the audience. Are there any questions? Yeah, there's a question.
Hello. I would like to tie up a couple of points from both analysts. One of the recommendations was to improve the infrastructure for the service providers. I think that was the IHS, one of the recommendations. And then what the other data point we saw was that folks are willing to pay more, or you retain more, or you increase your penetration when you have better speeds, right? I guess the one data point that I didn't see was what exactly are those target speeds, right? What are the speed services that over time that would make that dynamic happen? And I'm curious, how far is the infrastructure from getting to what customers want? And the last data point was we saw that a lot of the European countries are in the region of high aggregation, high at the top right corner with high. No, owned by a large larger companies, which was help me out.
Consolidation.
High consolidation, right? So if you take those four data points, what's the driver for the infrastructure improvement? What's the driver for higher speeds, right? And so what is that dynamic going to look like, or could happen in that direction?
Yeah, so partially the answer to your question is that it's a bit of a chicken and egg question, because what is the driver for higher speed? And when you opened your question, you said how close are we to the speeds that are required? Of course, it partly depends on what's out there that people want to stream and want to access with a broadband connection, and how that is developing. So taking one example, before Netflix existed, what did people want to stream? They weren't streaming anything like the volume of video that they are streaming today. So with the entrance of streaming video, the demand for speed has gone up incredibly. How close are cable operators to offering what people want? Again, I'm afraid the answer is it depends on the market. So we can see in certain markets where certainly offers are well in excess of 100 megabits per second, and that is satisfying user demand, and that's when we see the shift.
So Maria can jump in.
Yes, okay. So, yes, to continue what Guy was saying on your question, I think this morning it was mentioned that how video delivery is the key driver of increasing demand for bandwidth. So obviously people are consuming more and more video, streaming video, 4K, 8K, VR, so you need good bandwidth, we need reliable broadband, and that's why cable keeps investing. Now it's 3.0, but they're also talking about 3.1, so they have to keep evolving to make sure they can provide everything that the customer wants. And then if that experience is good, the customer will stay, will not leave to another provider. That's why it's so important to provide them with reliable infrastructure. And I think we're going to talk later about it. That's why they're playing a very collaborative role with players like Netflix, like online players, helping them put in service in their own network to make sure the content is close to the user and the experience is good. Everyone is a winner.
I think it's a very good question, and also kind of the bridge to the next presentation around 4K, 8K, etc. But from my background, being in the industry for over 10 years now, that question already we had it as 10 years before. So it's every single step. Why do you need more bandwidth? And sometimes, as Guy mentioned, it's a chicken egg problem. And usually you start with bandwidth, and then use cases come up. On the other hand, just to mention, there's also a lot of investment going into reducing bandwidth for video delivery. I mean, there's kind of a Netflix, Google, Facebook, they're all investing into codecs, trying to deliver HD quality at 2 megabyte, and comparing that to satellite distribution, where you're going to deliver HD in 20 megabit. Well, you can't really compare it, but this is kind of the other trend, which kind of limits, and again, the need. I think that's more interesting than it's not the single video stream that's really driving. It's rather what we heard from Nicholas before, that everything's going to be connected in home, so there are multiple devices, and this is rather than a driver for the bandwidth appetite in a home. And it's not only kind of the pure speed, but it's also going to be around latency, etc., that you have a stable connection, that all the services in home are properly working. So I would take the chance to hand over to Tatsu from Japan Cable Laboratories, and he's going to talk about, as already mentioned, about 4K, 8K, and what's the step forward to enhance cable TV.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, and I thank the ITU for giving me this opportunity to speak here at this conference. Okay, my presentation today is about 4K, 8K, and VR, which is virtual reality. And we think this is a next step forward for cable industry. And okay, by the way, my organization, Japan Cable Laboratories, is a non-profit organization supported by Japanese cable operators and vendors. And my main objective is to define specification to ensure interoperability between cable headend and STB. And during the past 3 years, I've been involved in writing and defining specifications for 4K transmission, 4K and 8K cable transmission, and writing the specification for cable headend and STBs. So due to the nature of my business, please allow me to speak about the future of cable TV from a little bit technical point of view. Okay, so this slide just say that 4K, 8K, and virtual reality will be the next business opportunities for cable television. And okay, I'll show you the next slide that the shipment 4K TV is now reaching what we call critical mass. And the Japanese DTH, we call it broadcasting satellite, they start carrying 4K and 8K in about 10 months from now, starting December of this year. And virtual reality might be a killer application. The mass production of head-mount display will help this application spread in consumers. And the picture here, I got this from the CES Las Vegas this year. This is I believe, Lenovo head-mount display. And I think the most advanced HMD uses what they call retina projection. It sends light into a retina of your eye directly. So with this type of HMD, you can see the real world. But with a retina projection, you can see the virtual reality image, and at the same time the real world. So I think this kind of application is becoming very becoming a reality in a few years, and with an affordable price that an ordinary consumer can buy. Okay, and this shows a shipment of 4K TV. The red indicates the total number of shipment, and the blue is a shipment of 4K panel TVs. And the last data from November of last year, here the 4K accounts for more than 40% of the total shipment. And the green indicates that the accumulated shipments since 2014, and at the end of last year, it is more than 3 million 4K panel TV sold in Japan. So okay, this shows that the Japanese broadcasting satellite starts 4K and 8K service this December, coming December, in 10 months from now. And the cable television operator is now preparing to carry or that retransmit these channels over the HFC or FTTH system to their subscribers. And this here doesn't slide doesn't show, but this new DTH system uses a new kind of modulation and a different kind of CAS system, so that we need a new television set. As I told you that Japan shipped more than 3 million 4K panel. They don't have receiver for this service. So the consumers who bought those 4K panels need to either buy a satellite receiver or cable STB. So we Japanese cable operators see a big business chance here to attain new cable customers, because they have to either buy a cable STB or satellite receiver. And actually, we think that it's easier for them to buy cable STB. They just have to buy a cable STB. So, but to newly receive satellite downlink, they need to have an antenna, and that should be a new type of antenna, because we are adding left-hand circular probe. The current satellite only have right hand, so they anyway need a new type of antenna and satellite receiver. So here we see a big chance for cable operators. And next slide shows this is a simple diagram showing how 4K, 8K, and BR can be transported to cable customers. And this assumes linear services. And the next slide, this assumes video on demand or MPEG dash type of delivery. So I go back to the previous slide. This is what the Japanese cable operator is now using to deliver what we call cable 4K nationwide. So they H265 encoded 4K video is sent through mostly fiber optic lines to cable headend, and cable operator send them either through HFC or some send them by IP multicast to their customers. So this is already happening in Japan, and I think this diagram can be extended globally so that for example, 4K contents from Tokyo can be delivered to maybe developing countries like Africa. Anyway, and this slide shows the access line, cable access line and transmission rate. As you can see, cable CRAM system of 256 CRAM can carry up to 38 megabit, so which is sufficient for a transmission of a 4K channel. This is existing, so cable operators can use the existing infrastructure to carry 4K. For 8K, which requires around 100 megabits of bandwidth, we can send, a cable operator can send this by using ITU-T J183 or J382. So Japanese operators are preparing to equip J183 so that they can send 8K when the DT8K start in December. Now, of course, we can send 4K and 8K using DOCSIS and EPON or GPON, and many Japanese cable operators already got both RF and IP infrastructure, so I think they are ready to send 4K and even 8K in the near future. And about virtual reality, so this diagram shows how omnidirectional, that is 360-degree image is projected on a surface screen. So this projection is called equirectangular projection, similar to what is being used in the map projection. And the next slide shows actually what JLabs is actually doing. We use a fish-like camera and stitch the image to form a ERP image in the left lower side of the slide. And this is the image is edited and recorded and transmitted, and at the receive side the HMD picks up the part of the ERP image. So if you look around, you get the image of what you are looking at. So by the way, to allow for HD image at HMD, the original ERP image should be the size of 4K. So the virtual reality transmission consumes much bandwidth. So to send HD, it's 4K, and 4K. To retrieve 4K at a HMD, it should be 8K. So it's very bandwidth consuming service. And this is a list of technical specifications, and again, the next slide shows the documents of ITU-T and other SDOs. I did not go into detail, but for 4K and 8K transmission, the ITU-T documents are almost ready, but we have to maybe add a document for virtual reality, which is being developed at MPEG and IEEE. So, lastly, I should say that 4K and 8K will be a very good opportunity at 2020 Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics. I think there will be winter games starting very soon in Korea. Yeah, Pyeongchang, Korea. In a week or two, very soon. But after that, in 2020, in August, Tokyo will host Summer Olympics and Paralympics. And there, the 4K and 8K and virtual realities videos, I hope will be will provide a good opportunity for cable television industry. Okay, and lastly, we call for interest in the 4K, 8K, and virtual reality. Anybody interested in this kind of service, please let us know. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Tatsu. Very interesting angle, because at the very end it comes down to delivering entertainment and delivering the video, even if it's emotional and everyone wants to see it. You need to have a connection into the homes. Summarizing and opening then the kind of floor for questions, I want to start with a question, and that's rather basic one. So the history started with linear TV, actually. So that's where everything was coming from. Even me grew up with 3 channels, so there was no choice. At the very end, there was also no problem for consumers, because it was fairly simple what you're going to do at prime time. So you just zap through the 3 channels, and that was basically it. So, and then if there was nothing, you switched off the TV and we're reading a book. And we saw the chart from Guy about that kind of the consumption patterns are slightly changing. So, but still, when looking into the data in various countries, linear is still fairly stable, and so far it's rather complementary what we're seeing. So it's rather adding up. So my question to start with is cable, is linear TV here to stay, or are we going to shift completely into an on-demand world? So maybe to start with this question, and maybe Maria, you want to start?
Yes. So I think that linear TV will be here for a long time. So yes, it's here to stay. And we keep talking about on-demand services. Correct, they are there. But I have here statistics in 5 top countries in Europe and in the US. And countries like Spain or Italy, more than 90% of the viewing is linear TV. More than 90%. Countries like Germany, almost 90%. And even in the UK or the US, where they were so familiar with both services with on-demand, BBC iPlayer was so popular for many years, linear is still very high, more than 70% of viewing is linear viewing. And talking about millennials because people say, oh, but millennials don't watch linear. That's not true. They also watch linear TV as well. So we have some statistics saying that 45% of the viewing for millennials is also linear TV. So we think for sure it's there to stay. It will not disappear, but it may change. It may change the way linear TV will be in the future. So it may be a personalized linear viewing experience. So with algorithms that will predict which content you want to watch, and then they will create a linear experience for you. But we think for sure linear TV will stay.
Mm-hmm. Other comments from the panel on that one? Maybe some. This is kind of with a European flavor. Just open question to the audience of opinions on that one, because they're. I mean, the big OTT SVOD guys are doing proper PR.
But even companies like Netflix, that obviously is on demand, but they're already kind of creating a semi-linear experience. You're watching a series, episode 1. When you finish, a few seconds later, if you don't do anything, you watch episode 2, 3, 4. So they kind of create a linear experience for you to be in the sofa. So it's not linear TV, but they're kind of replicating it. YouTube in the US, they have lots of live channels as well. So even the new online players, they give importance to the linear experience.
Mm-hmm. Any questions from the audience on that one? So then maybe move on a bit around aggregation and business models in the upcoming industry. And so far the cable operators have been aggregators by definition. So they were collecting some linear channels and made a bundle out of it and were selling a package to the consumer. There were some trends, especially in the Nordics, where they put in some flexibility for the consumer. At the very end, it didn't work well because too much choice is too complex. But the question is, and maybe Steve can answer on that one, in terms of, because with your OS system, you're going right in this direction, becoming an aggregator, and who's playing a critical role in this aggregation business? Is this going to be the cable operators who are going to succeed? Is it guys like Amazon who are kind of dictating the entire value chain, or are these other players like manufacturers or operating system developers who have a critical role in this aggregation business?
Yeah, I think from China, I think things is different from other regions of world. Especially is different from maybe Europe. So in China, the cable operator who provide the linear TV service, who is the older video service providers, the problem with them is in China, this kind of company is dispersed. Dispersed means in each province we have tens of cable operators, they are operating separately. So they are not consolidated as in United States, like Comcast, Time Warner, or in Europe. So this is their problem. This is due to the regulation in China. So as new technology emerging, this kind of operation mode can hardly compete with the new enters, like a telco, whose China major 3 telco company start provide IPTV services maybe 10 years ago. So now they are more than 100 million IPTV operators, IPTV subscribers in China. So in this case, the many legacy TV subscribers, they just goes to the new service providers for the video service, because for in China, for IPTV services, they can provide all kind of VOD non-linear content, but they don't have the linear TV license. For linear TV license, they cooperate with the local cable TV operators to get license with them and pay them for this kind of services. So this is one kind of new commerce for the video service that the telco. And also in China, the broadband infrastructure is moving to FTTH. So this infrastructure is good enough to provide Full HD and even 4K video services. So now for FTTH, each home basically get the 100 megabytes broadband. So this is the one new commerce to compete with the cable broadcast company in China. The other case in China is that internet online video companies in China, they are like iQIYI and Tencent Video and the Youku. They're basically equivalent to the Netflix in the United States. So they are also very aggressive to get the users. So by the end of last year, the total OTT subscribers in China is also more than 100 million. So with the iQIYI has the #1 subscribers, is almost 50 million. For Tencent, 43. The third one is Youku, is also the claims 30 million plus subscribers. So these companies basically, they are pure OTT operators, only provide the nonlinear VOD content to the subscribers. So my opinion is in China, unless all our cable operators is able to consolidate, they have a chance to compete with the newcomers. Otherwise, they are very difficult to compete in the newer ages. So the latest data is that the legacy cable TV subscribers is about 230 million in China. But 1/3 of them don't pay anymore. So basically they don't need that services. So, and also this churn rate is growing. So I think this is something happening in China.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And this, I think it's interesting. So feeding into the question, so what's the relevant layer of aggregation? So we learned that linear TV is here to stay. So there needs someone to aggregate that one. Yeah. Which so far Netflix is not. Netflix is basically a studio. We're talking a lot about Netflix, but what they're doing is they have kind of a studio producing stuff, and by accident they have a big tech department, which is smart. But so far they're not moving into this aggregator role. On the other hand, when looking at Amazon, I mean, they're taking a completely different approach, offering a complete operating system, operating their own service, Amazon Video, now in multiple countries, and in 3 countries they already started, was UK, Germany, and US. They started Amazon channels, so moving into the linear sphere as well. And so my question is there someone else beside Amazon which could play this aggregator role? I think the big smart TV providers tended to move in this direction, like with Samsung building up an entire ecosystem. Others as well, or is it guys like Roku building up a new operating system and now trying to be in every home and playing the aggregator role, combining various types of content, and having the direct access to the customer. And if that happening, what's going to be the role for cable? Is it purely access and a pure pipe, or what's their answer against this development?
Yes, I think you are right. I think talking about cable and the relation with Netflix, they always saw it as another channel. They have series, they have movies, it's interesting content. It was not a threat, it was something to have on board. Amazon is a different story. They have their own content, but they also have channels. They are playing the role of a pay TV operator, adding also sports to that as well. They already have some sports content, and now they are going to bid for more sports. People think that, or we think that they may even bid for the Premier League in the UK, so they're playing a very important role. They have a big ecosystem, so definitely Amazon is a big threat for current pay TV operators, not just cable. And then other companies like Apple TV, you have also, they play as an aggregator where you can have Netflix, Amazon via Apple TV as well. So there are lots of threats, but as we said in the beginning, there are lots of opportunities for cable as well. They have to learn how to monetize everything they have, how to make the most of the data they have about the users as well, how to make better personalization, recommendations. Netflix is invest a lot in artificial intelligence for algorithms and predict content. So if cable is innovative, they can compete with these other players, yes.
Questions from the panel or comments from the audience? Yeah.
Thank you. I think the conclusion from principally from Maria that about the future of cable television, to some extent, if I may, it runs counter to what we read every day, doesn't it, in the internet, which suggests that cable television is doomed and that the future belongs to Netflix or whomever. You made the point that one of the reasons for this is that because in the United States, the cost of cable networks is very, very high, and 4 times or more that of Europe and the Far East. And therefore, cable network is doing quite well in those other countries. I can believe that, but what I don't understand is why the Americans don't realize this. I mean, surely, if it's absolutely obvious, isn't it, that they're going to go out of business unless they match prices with other services. So what do you put down this intransigence by the US cable industry to, Maria?
Of course, they realize that, and they're launching their own pay light options, so they know they cannot compete as they were doing till now. So they're launching their own pay light options with lower prices, multi-screen everywhere, and also investing in buying content providers, for example, acquiring content companies, making money from other activities like smart home. So Comcast is doing a lot of work around the smart home and how to monetize that. So they're trying to find new sources of revenue, and also with the TV that used to be the heart of the company as well, launching options to compete with the online players. But yes, they were very slow. They didn't compete fast enough with the online players. And yes, cord cutting affects them more than anywhere else. So we keep reading about Netflix, but the reality is there is more money coming from cable than from Netflix in Europe. So Netflix is everywhere, but Netflix is a channel. And the ARPU is very low compared to the ARPU of cable. And even the metrics, when everyone said, oh, linear TV is dead, nobody cares about linear. Well, the statistics, the numbers, prove that that is not the case. Linear TV is by far the preferred way to watch content, even for millennials. But headlines and social media, they like to speak about a topic, and then everything is about that topic.
Maybe moving a bit further down what we heard before, talking about bandwidth, because this could be something for the cable operators, which is a clear competitive advantage. And we heard about new trends going up with the quality, and also new ways of VR, AR, etc. So a question for you, Tetsu, what do you think it's going to be the bandwidth requirement when thinking about IP delivery? Because this is then how competitive the market's going to be for 4K, 8K, and also VR. What do you need as IP bandwidth to deliver that kind of service?
Okay. I think the cable has a RF bandwidth, which is easy to send 4K and even 8K. But in Japan, there's a company called a subsidiary of NTT who is providing IPTV. And they say that it is difficult, not very easy to provide a 4K IP linear service using the current network. So I think the in that sense, Japanese cable companies have advantage because they can send 4K and even 8K using their existing network. I think for IPTV to be sent on a very good condition, they would need 10G access lines. So, of course, the core network congestion is an issue, but the current PON network, they mostly using EPON or GPON at speed of 1 gigabit per second. And I don't think that's enough for 4K videos to be transported along with other internet traffic. So I think we maybe in a few 5 years, we'll have 10 gigabit PON systems in the access line, and at that time, the telecom operator can also provide IPTV, 4K IPTV, or even 8K. But now I think cable RF system is better than the telecom network in terms of the bandwidth. Because RF, of course, efficiency is not, if you talk about efficiency, IP is better than RF. But to send a stable video, of course, RF is very easy to use and can provide a very good quality. So in that sense, now at this point, I think cable is better than telecom IP system. Thank you.
Maybe kind of a last question around content, since we heard before in the first panel, people keep saying content is king. And then that might be true. The question is, at the very end, is the producers are kind of so far the winners. And this is the question around, and I think the cable companies thought about it for quite a long time. But now seems to be getting a little bit easier stepping into exclusive content, since you can be more focused. And Maria was already stating on her slides that there are a lot of activities are going on. There are also cable operators, who are reluctant. Just taking Vodafone as an example, so they don't move into this exclusive content game. So what's the opinion? How big is the risk? Because you also stated actually it's a lot of amount of money investing into exclusive content. Some of the players tried their luck with sports, which is even more expensive. Just thinking about the UK Premier League rights, and it costs you a fortune. So what's the recommendation how to deal with exclusive content for cable operators?
Well, as I said in the presentation, how to deal with that. If you're a cable operator and you play in a local country, in a small area, the best way to make the most of the content is if you have a partnership with companies, with having the channels that people want to watch, having partnerships with companies like Netflix. But obviously it wouldn't make sense to invest massive amounts of money that probably you don't have in content. It's different if you are a big player around the world where you can then move that content to other countries. That will make more sense. But again, it's a very difficult question. In general, some telcos are investing in content. Sometimes they have been criticized. There have been lots of research proving those telcos that invest in exclusive content, the share price have gone down. Those who didn't, like Vodafone, is going up. So is it better? Is it a good idea that in the UK BT spend that amount of money in the sport rights? Was too much? It makes sense that Telefonica is spending so much money in their own series. Well, maybe if they didn't spend this money, things will be worse for them. So I don't think it's a very easy answer, you should invest or not. If you are a small cable operator, obviously not. If you are a big player, you have to think about maybe it can make sense. Or if not, just make partnerships or content acquisitions of small companies like Liberty Global did.
Thanks for that one. Any further questions from the audience? Then I would finish. Oh, there's a question.
Yes, my question is for Chinese speaker, because we have listened a lot about the investment from this field into the contents, and in China there are investment in the contents, but you said that the cable operators have not the money. So who is investing money in contents in China?
Yeah, okay. So actually, I think right now it is internet company who are investing in the content. So according to the latest news that 3 major Chinese online video provider, basically this company are all backed by the top 3 China internet company, BAT, Baidu, Ali, and Tencent. So each internet company have invested in one online video company. So the data is they budget 90 million loss in 2018. So that means that with this money will spend on the exclusive content for them. So that with HE budget for 3 billion loss. With other 2, that is Tencent Video and Youku, each of them budgeted 8 billion loss for the content. So basically, they compete for the subscribers. So only with good and exclusive content that will attract the subscribers. So that is the situation in China OTT service. All these companies are losing money. They need money to ban. This is the current situation. None of them is making money. So for the cable operator, they are not going to, they have no money to lose. So they cannot spend money on content. And also for telco IPTV operators, they are aggregators. So they are also not going to spend money on content. So it is those big internet companies who are invest on the content. I think this is the same worldwide. In the United States, also the emerging newer video company who are invest on the exclusive content, and that is so they actually this is to the answer of who are going to be a super aggregate. I think that could be those bigger internet company. So in United States, that Google also provided linear TV services. They have YouTube TV, right? So, and also Hulu, they also have linear TV services. So I think that will be the internet company they are going to prevail. Thank you.
Thanks for that. So maybe the very last and super simple question, going right in this direction about OTT delivery, and just looking at the recent press release from Sky today at their earnings call, talking about Sky over IP, going completely over the top. So my question to all three of you is, when do we stop distributing television via satellite and via classic RF technology, and everything is going to be IP? So at which time? So just a date.
Coexist for quite a long period. Anyhow, they will not disappear in the short term. So, in a sense, they are complementaries. But I think that IP will become the mainstream.
Maria?
I think I agree with him as well, that they will coexist at least in the next 5-10 years for sure.
Yeah, yes, I'm on the same view. The RF and IP will coexist maybe 20 or more years from now. Yeah.
Okay, so we're concluding it's going to be rather an evolution than a revolution, getting rid of all the well-known satellite distribution in the next few months. So I'd like to thank all of you for your time, for your presentations, for your comments. Thanks everybody. Was an interesting discussion. Hopefully it was interesting for the audience. You guys are now heading, I think, into the next coffee break, supported by KDDI, which is happening outside. Thanks a lot, and enjoy.
They just lost in the coffee break, or they are prepared already for the evening. So I'm very happy that you are back. So this session, we are dealing also some technology and innovation driving growth of cable TV. Here we have 4 speakers, and we have David Wood from the EBU, we have Marcelo of Moreno from Brazil, but also he is representing some ITUT activities. Then we have Simon Trudel?
Yes.
Okay, from Switzerland, and Peter Wallop, he's ITU expert, but he's Dutch or Brazilian, I don't know. So Dutch. Okay, so if you allow me, we change a little bit the order of the presentation because David has to leave a little bit earlier, but I don't want you not to listen to him because his presentations each time very interesting and very funny. So if I can have some few words about David, that David has chaired a number of standardization groups in ITU and DVB project over many years, including the groups that developed television subjective quality evaluation methodology, digital television, HD TV, and ultra-high definition TV. He currently is a co-chair of the ITU-RG AVA group and ITU-R study group 6. He has also worked in the DVB project on ultra-high definition TV phase 1 and 2, stereoscopic television systems, and virtual reality systems. He has won a number of international awards. And in addition, David has taken a great interest in the development and standardization of systems for improving media accessibility for those with disabilities. Now he is retired from the EBU, but he's consultant on the EBU technology and innovation. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Yes, right. Let me press the button and good afternoon. I thought it might be interesting to bring to your attention perhaps what we have found in other groups, perhaps principally the ITU-R, to be the issue of the evolution of content forms. And why this is because cable networks, as they go into the future, arguably should anticipate these new content forms and design their system appropriately. So I wouldn't be talking specifically about cable networks themselves, but of the kinds of things that cable networks should anticipate they may need to carry in the years to come. Is that okay? So if you look at the parameters of the media over the last 50 years, what you find is that the forms of the media are actually evolving, qualities evolving, and so on. We can actually predict to some degree which forms will occur in the future by looking at what is available today. We can use the so-called Gartner curve, which suggests how things are evolving, and from that we can perhaps work out what we should take account of. And these are I think. First of all, there is video formats and systems. There are audio formats and systems. There are new media forms, and one of them is virtual reality. There is another new media form, augmented reality. I'm sure you know this. There is evolution in terms of access systems, the systems that are designed to help people with disabilities. There's the issue of voice activation, which may be important in future as a kind of gateway to cable networks. And there are hybrid systems that combine cable or broadcasting together with internet delivery. So these are the evolving forms of media content, and the issue is which are important and how should we evaluate them and how should we take them into account in cable networks in future. There's another one, 3D TV. If you don't leave the room when you mention that, but it's there anyway. So there we are. Forms are evolving. That's the list. And the first one, because I think it's the most important, is the issue of video formats. We've had standard definition, enhanced definition, high definition, ultra high definition 1, ultra high definition 2. Ultra high definition 2 is, I suppose, the one that is most talked about today, a 4K system with something called high dynamic range. In the ITU-R documents, you'll find the specifications for this system 8K as well. One thing is absolutely clear is, if you look over the last 50 years, image quality continues to increase. We cannot say we have reached the ceiling on image quality. And there are a number of parameters that are involved: the resolution, the frame rate, the dynamic range, the colorimetry, and so on. And these are all things that we've looked at in the ITU-R, of course. But way back at the beginning, 20 years ago, the ITU-R decided that new formats should use 1080p 1920 as the basic building blocks. So all future video formats are going to be multiples of that in some way, because that makes it easier to convert from one form to another. Now, you know about 2K, high definition television, if you like, or 1080p. 4K you know about. You've heard a bit about 8K this afternoon. But it doesn't stop there. There's a 12K, a widescreen version of the 8K system. And I'd like to suggest to you that it certainly won't stop there, that we will go to 16K and 32K. And we will have in prospect high dynamic range and high frame rate. So please don't think that we reached the ceiling with 4K. And the basic specs for 2K, 4K, and 8K are in these two ITU documents if you want to look them up. Now, if we just look a little bit more detail into image resolution and this idea that they're all multiples of 1080p, you can draw up this table and of the evolution of video systems. And I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it, that it absolutely isn't going to stop at 4K or 8K, that over the next decades we're going to go 16K, 32K, and so on. And this is going to be possible because we'll have new forms of bit rate compression, which will be much more efficient. At the moment, for 8K, you need about 90 megabits. You know that, I'm sure. There are people in the MPEG group who talk about 6 times improvements in compression systems in the years to come. So it's not impossible, is it, for us to imagine that we would have all of those numbers in future? What do you think? Is it an inevitable trend? Of course it is, otherwise I wouldn't bring it to you. Why more detail? Some people say that when we look at HDTV, we have saturation of the eye. This is 60 cycles per degree, but it's actually not all there is. And my view is that there are things like hyper acuity when the object is moving, which will need 120 pixels per degree, or cycles per degree, for feature localization. So we're not there yet. And we also know that depth perception is improved by texture gradient. And also there's degradation between the camera and the TV screen. And domestic TV sets vary in quality. Cinema widescreen aspects can be attractive. And don't forget this one. Bigger numbers always appeal to the public. Just ask your wife when you go to the TV shop. Okay? Sorry for that remark. And compression technologies continue to improve. So it will not stop at 4K. That's my point. And you need to think about this when you're developing cable networks. Now, audio formats. This is important too, isn't it? Again, I'm going back to the ITUR. There is a new concept in audio. You know, at the moment, you have surround sound where the, let's say, 5.1 audio channels delivered to 5.1 speakers. The new idea is the sound element. This is something which is, you have a sound object plus metadata, and together they make the sound element. The sound object might be like a car, and the metadata tells you where to put the car in the room, up in the top right-hand corner, whatever it is. So this new concept of sound elements. And how many will there be? We don't know, but I think people are talking about 16 sound elements per broadcast channels. And the sound elements are converted by something called the renderer into loudspeaker signals. So this is a very exciting process, and there are 3 ways of doing this if you want to look at the ITUR documents. One is called channel-based coding, simple one used in Japan for the 22.2 system. Ambisonics or scene-based coding, which is very good for things like virtual reality when you've got some headphones. And the other one, object-based coding, where you tell the receiver where the object is in the room and you ask it to locate it there. So these are the 3 routes to audio formats. Basically the same principle, sound element, sound plus metadata. And you find all of the details of them in 2051. But I think this is going to be important, and it is something you need to think about when you're designing new cable networks. Now, access systems, this is also something which is evolving fairly dramatically. There are the conventional subtitling systems that we all know and love in the vertical interval or sent digitally. The new thinking is to use timed texts subtitling, and this will mean, amongst other things, that we could use the same system for broadcasting, cable, IPTV, and internet, because it's like an HTML based system. And there is a new TTML system which specifically provides some additional features for subtitles in UHD TV. So you need to take that into account as well. There are audio descriptions. This is something which tells the listener what is happening in the picture, and they can be open, that's to say they can be heard along with the sound, or they can be closed. You can switch them in where you want to. So this is another access system, and that may indeed eventually be based on TTML as well. Signing, sign language, open and closed, open systems where it's there all the time, closed where it's optional. These again are being looked at. Something called clean audio to reduce the background noise. Elderly people find it difficult sometimes to hear what the dialogue is when there's a lot of partying going on or something like that. So there are systems to provide clean audio, and they can be based on technology in the receiver. This is a system developed in Japan, which is very good, and another one in Germany on the transmit side. when we're talking about audio systems, you remember I mentioned that we have audio objects which can provide a three-dimensional image of the sound in a room, but we can do a lot more than that with object-based, because each of those audio channels, each of those sound elements can do other things, helping people who need to access services in different ways, or making programs indeed more entertaining. So this is access systems. And it's all happening in a group which is called IRGAVA, which I co-chair, and the W3C are doing a lot of work on TTML. So this is another threshold that you need to think about with a new cable system. Then there are integrated hybrid systems. You know these, don't you? Companion screens where you get the signal to your tablet via internet, and the TV show is on the screen. You can move them about, or you can provide additional information on the tablet and so on. Integrated hybrid systems. How does this fit with cable networks in the future? It's becoming very important in broadcasting. It's the combination of linear and non-linear content. Companion screens. This was companion screens, the idea that we would watch with a tablet on our lap and the TV in front of us sounded great a few years ago. But frankly speaking, it hasn't proved as popular as we thought. I guess people don't like multitasking as much as we thought, and doing two things at the same time, watching the TV screen and playing and checking your email at the same time is quite difficult, I guess, although I must admit that's what I do in the evening. But anyway, for better or worse, the idea of companion screens is there and growing slowly, but not as fast as we thought. One of the problems is the plurality of standards for hybrid systems. You may know this. There's one called HBBTV, there's one hybrid cast in Japan, there's another one in Korea, and so on. So we do have an issue with standards, and if the ITU-T can help to resolve that, there is an ITU-R report which has got them all in it, which is okay, but it's not terrifically helpful, is it? And the latest systems have time synchronization between what comes into the tablet and what appears on the screen. So you might have something like a signer who appears on the tablet, and the rest of the family is watching the TV screen, but the two are synced up. So this is integrated hybrid systems. How do they fit with cable networks? What do you think? And if you want the details of the hybrid systems, they're in that document there. Now, voice activation. I don't know quite what that picture is, but it seems to be somebody talking at W. Yeah, the artificial intelligence and Internet of Things is used a lot in these systems. I'm sure you know that. And they can be used to control media systems. There are essentially about 4 ways out there of voice activation. One is to have a remote control for the TV set, which you can talk to, assuming you don't lose it down the back of the settee, of course. The next one is having a media adapter, which usually goes into a USB socket in the TV set, and this gives you some broadband services and so on. The third one is to use one of the it's a smart TV which has it built in. Sorry, and the fourth one is to use one of these little objets d'art, you know, that sit on your desk and you talk to if you're crazy at home. So there are different ways of arranging voice activation. All of them can be arranged to control the TV set. There are two things they do, of course. They switch things on and off and change sources, but they also give you advice and suggestions. And the suggestions come because the thing converts what you say to text, sends it to a search engine, comes back with the answer, back to voice again. But they're going to take some time to develop because there are 7,000 different spoken languages in the world. So it's going to take a little bit of time. And what with the strange Geneva accent as well, it'll probably take even longer than that. One of the important things is that this may become a gatekeeper. So it may influence what the viewer sees. And it may be it may be, that the people who've developed these voice activation systems may want paying at some point for letting your content get through to the user. I don't know, but it is something that one needs to take account of, and maybe there's a case for making your own voice activation system if you want to avoid that. Here's a bit more about personalization and voice activation. Years ago, when we looked at this in the EBU, we thought the future would lie with what was called an intelligent agent system. This was somebody on the TV screen, synthetic, artificial, who spoke to you nicely, who seemed unthreatening entirely, and said, I've got some programs you may be interested in, or when your mother called. Of course, we don't have the technology, the computer power to do this kind of thing, but I have a feeling that it won't be that long before we see on the TV screen more than voice activation. We see intelligent agents like this, a friendly face that recognizes you, listens to you, and talks to you. Of course, it will need a lot of computer power to do that. This is one thing you might want to think about for future cable networks. 3D TV, I spent 5 years of my life on this to no effect. No, that's not true. Yes, simple stereoscopic left and right eye images did not prove popular. You know that, I'm sure, on the TV. There were some problems there. The glasses, some people didn't like wearing them. People didn't like multitasking, because when you look through the glasses, you look down, you couldn't see your laptop or whatever it was down here. And there was fatigue of the visual cortex, because the fusing process takes brain power, takes the computer and the brain some work to do, and so you could get tired of this quite easily. And then, of course, they dealt with what is called horizontal disparity only. So if you laid on the side on the settee, you didn't see the 3D. Future systems need to provide more object wave information. This is information with the phase of the wave, and both horizontal and vertical disparity. There are new tools being developed, such as in Japan, Integral TV, which may do this, and you might want to think about including them or thinking of them in future cable networks. And there are some DVB standards for 3D TV. Virtual reality, 360 video. There are two types. 3 degrees of freedom, head movement only. This is the one that goes into a container with a smartphone. 6 degrees of freedom, head and body movement as well. Mono and stereoscopic video. And the standards are all done, I think, in this group called OMA, an MPEG group. And when we've looked at it, we find that it is possible. You will need probably 4K per eye and so on, but it is possible within perhaps 20 megabits to deliver something that can be used. But there is one important thing is that virtual reality cannot be used for long duration. Our estimate is that up to 20 minutes is about the maximum you can watch a virtual reality without wanting to take the headset off. Limited content duration. So it may just be a niche. Augmented reality, addition of multimedia to the image. There are IEEE standards, and mixed reality, which combines not just multimedia and an image, it combines an image and an image. There's uses today a lot in program production. You see them with all sports programs these days. And program distribution may come with things like the Microsoft HoloLens. And they can be used for access services. The HoloLens can be used to provide subtitles or signers and so on, which you see at the same time as you watch a TV screen. So augmented reality, and there are people who believe that this is going to be more popular than virtual reality, but it still may be a niche. So here we are, folks. Conclusions. It's important, I'd like to suggest to you, please correct me if I'm wrong, for developers of cable networks to take into account the evolution of content technology. Public expectations do rise as the public educates itself to viewing content. If people are going to see 8K from something, maybe it's broadband or whatever, they're going to get used to it, and they're going to want to see it on everywhere, including cable networks. So don't forget that our expectations rise as the public educates itself to its context, what it sees in other places. And it is most important to develop cable systems that can adapt to evolving content forms. You no doubt will see how to do that. I think the most critical evolution is probably image quality and personalization. You have to make the systems capable of expanding with those things. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, David. As promised, he's doing very interesting presentations and each time something new. Since David has to leave soon, if there is a question, maybe we can, there is one. Would you please introduce yourself?
Fernando Villarroel from Cisco. David, thank you for a great presentation. I'm curious where you would put the, I guess, the phenomena of live broadcasting at things like what we could do with Facebook now, where if you're away from home, you can see your children play soccer or something via some live broadcast. Curious about the quality, curious about the bandwidth utilization and how the service provider could prepare themselves for something in that direction.
Yeah, this is a very critical area too, and it's not just seeing your family, is it? It's wanting pictures of your house to see if it's being burgled or whatever, burglarized. So this issue of personal communications is going to be very important, and it is an issue about where cable networks fit into that. Are they the providers of this, or is it simply something that's done via internet? I'm sure that quality is going to evolve to the point where if you want to talk to your family in Australia, you're going to want to have ultra high definition image quality because that's what you're used to, and I'm sure that with new compression systems that will be entirely possible. What the role is of cable networks compared to internet connections, I don't know, but what do you think? You must have a view if you ask the question.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious from the perspective of the operator if there has to be some sort of policy with regards to quality of service that there isn't there now or is taken for granted now in order to make some of these things happen, right? So it's a little bit of the nitty gritty, but in order to make these things a reality, including augmented reality, including such things like that, and to attain the sort of latencies that you need. There needs to be more focus on quality of service metrics in order to make some of these new technologies really happen beyond just, raw bandwidth.
Yes, that's very true. The issue of latency is very critical, as you know, for virtual reality, and you have to be within milliseconds in terms of the reaction of the sound and the vision. Otherwise, people feel sick. So there needs to be, you're quite right, a kind of an examination of what are the critical parameters that we need. We've done quite a lot of work in DVB on the critical parameter values for virtual reality, and there's a report on that. But as you say, when it comes to things like personal communications with other people and so on, and your family, for sure there's only one way the quality is going to go, and that's up, and that's what the public is going to demand, and that's what the networks will have to provide. But there's a thought that for virtual reality, to get the bit rate and the latency we need, we will have to go to what's called 5G delivery, which threatens to bring 100 megabits to each home at a cost of 1% of the costs today. Is that an exaggeration? We don't know, probably. But so that this rolls over to this question, doesn't it, of what the relative roles are of broadcasting cable and things like 5G and how they will cope with the demands of the future.
Thank you, Dave. Sorry, but we don't have time for additional questions because we still have 3 speakers. Thank you very much, Dave, again. And if you wish to stay with us for a few minutes, okay, or if you wish to leave, feel free. You have done already your job, and it was excellent. So the next speaker is Marcelo of Moreno. He is from the Federal University of Juiz de Fora in Brazil. He's an associate professor and the computer science department there, and he's also a permanent member of the computer science postgraduate program. He holds master and doctorate degrees in informatics And he is the reporter of ITUT question 13/16. This is the multimedia application platforms and system for IPTV, and also co-chair of ITV Intersector Group on integrated broadcast broadband. You heard already a little bit from David on this. Vice chair of ITUT Study Group 16, and he is an editor of many ITUT recommendation and technical papers. He is also a coordinator of middleware working group at the Brazilian digital TV system. So, Marcelo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you, ITU, for this opportunity. I'm here to talk about the innovative multi-platform TV viewing experiences that I believe cable operators can provide as content aggregators that they are really, right? So we have discussed this in previous sessions, right? How cable network operators can, as aggregators, they are, how they can be interested at some new viewing experiences. So in my vision, cable TV operators are privileged because they securely know details about the end user. They have the personal information about the users, the history of consumption. They know details about all the packaged content. And this not only includes today linear TV and VOD, but also applications, but also content from OTTs, right? So a lot of metadata that cable TV operators can work with. They usually own the consumer equipment, right? So they can add as much as value to their services as desired. They control the endpoint, right? And also they manage the network. So with this amount of data and capacity of management, we already discussed today that new business models can arise, right? And it depends on the incorporation of new information communication technologies that the existing services can be improved, and also new services could be created from cable TV services. So in my presentation, I will show 6 aspects of new TV viewing experiences. Mr. Wood already discussed some of them. So the first one is multi-sourced content. We may have terminal devices, cable terminal devices that are connected to multiple networks because they became hybrid. There is a connection to broadband, connection to cable TV network, and also some free-to-air interfaces. A lot of sources that can be that the terminal device can work with. So with this, we may have multi-sourced content and multiple kinds of services. So linear TV, video on demand, applications. And we have today the technology called integrated broadcast broadband, where this technology is being discussed in the Intersector Raptor group that I am one of the co-chairs, the IRG-IBB. Okay, and we have 2 important documents regarding this. The documents are from ITUR. So a report, ITUR BT 2267, that just describes some existing technologies that fulfill the requirements for a real integrated broadcast broadband system. And also recommendation ITUR BT 2075 that specifies the integrated broadcast broadband system. And we are working with some harmonization. We have some harmonization effort because we have different technologies, as Mr. Wood mentioned, HBB TV, HybridCast, TOPS Media, and Jinga. These are the 4 ones that are included in both of these ITUR publications. And we are working with harmonizing it. It's important to have some standardization effort on this because we believe that for cable TV operators, for IPTV service providers, for broadcasters, it's better to have standardized APIs, standardized behavior of how this multi-sourced content can be managed. Okay, so we have these existing technologies, and we know they are evolving. There is some effort from the original countries that proposed these technologies. They are evolving constantly. So this is just a screenshot from an IBB application from France 24, and where the scenario is catch-up TV. You have linear TV service, but you can also provide the end user with some suggestions about previous content, and also come back in time in the content they may be watching in linear TV. And why not cable TV network operators? I think they could offer this kind of experience, because the amount of content that can be offered by them is much bigger and may be better adapted to the preferences of the end users. So the next one is seamless experience. How to provide this with some seamless experience that the end user will not be confused confused what he can see on the screen. So when switching between services, between cable TV channel to VOD content and then to a free-to-air channel, it must have some quality of experience levels that this switching is not too it's not too abrupt, but it's smooth. So we know that if everything would be based on IP, everything would be much smooth, because there is no channel switching, no RF. But and since I am an IPTV professional as well, so I have to say about the IPTV is an option in this, and I would like to mention H.700 series. But it must be beyond that. It's not just basing everything on IPTV. Okay, why not cable TV operators? Why not to provide user interfaces where the content is recommended all the time, not only just as a portal? And this recommendation would be based on advanced user information, on contextual information. So if it would be just a portal, it can recommend linear TV, VOD content based on some algorithms and some contextual data. But also, content can be recommended in real time while the user may be watching another content, because cable TV operators may know better what are the user preferences. So in some time, end user will lose the perception of where the content is coming from. That's the seamless experience. It will not matter if the end user is watching linear TV or VOD. What it matters is quality, right? Quality of the video, quality of the experience. So the user may be recommended to watch some live TV show according to his preferences, and linked to that live TV show, there are some VOD content that would be great for the end user and can be recommended. So this recommendation could be notifications that would be sent to the terminal device, right? So that's why this girl is so happy, because the recommendation that she received was really interesting. That's the girl from the workshop banner, right? So technologies for that. We need the recommender systems. This is long time IT related technology that has been researched a lot mainly in multimedia systems area. And also incorporating these recommender systems, the artificial intelligence, deep learning, to make better decisions about the contextual data that is available. All right, right? So the next one is companion devices. This one I'll be a little quicker on that because Mr. Wood already talked about that. So we can transfer a lot of the user interactivity from the main screen to a companion device. The companion device is connected directly to the cable TV receiver, right? And for example, the portals, notifications, content selection, additional content, device switching. These are some of the functionalities that can be provided. Some of those IBB technologies that I listed before already provide this kind of a functionality because it's part of an IBB requirement. It's one of the IBB requirements. And but we can go further and we may add some different levels of immersive content in this companion device. So companion device can be the screen for augmented reality, virtual reality, and device synchronization is another technology that is important for these for the quality of experience in this case. Okay, so these are the companion device case. So here we have a screenshot from a MetaMirror, a solution, existing solution where the TV, you can see that the programming is just the video on the main screen, but on the second screen there are some overlaying graphics, okay, that the user can interact with. So it's about the full attention from the end user is focused on the content, not the diverging experiences, right? So virtual reality, another possibility, right? With the companion devices. And with HDTV, we may think about sending enrichment layers, video enrichment layers in different sources. You can have a HD video in one cable TV channel and enrichment layers sent through the internet or through IPTV, right? But if we will work with real usually HDTV resolutions from the very beginning, we can not only provide better video quality, but also immersive experiences, right? So, for example, as Mr. Wood mentioned, 360 video, free viewpoint of view video, free viewpoint video, and work with the scalable video coding and AGVC. It's important on that. Okay. So this is UHD-TV. So here is an HK video. It's a spheric 360 video, and I'm just showing the viewpoint that the user will watch, and the idea is the user can select. And in this case, it would be possible not to need some head-mount device. You may provide this on the main screen. User could interact somehow using remote controllers or some gestures, voice activation. And regarding this, how the user can interact with the terminal device, we must think about enhanced user interface. Not only graphical user interface, but the input, how the user can really activate the functions, right? We see today in the market remote controllers, advanced remote controllers, voice activation, gestures, but we need to think further. If we see what is possible with some immersive content, we will need some new forms of interactions. So multimodal interaction is an important technology here. It's about the combination of different kinds of inputs from the user. And the example I I put here is the user would point to a product that's displayed on the screen and say, buy that. These are two kinds of input at the same time. We need to work with the combination because it's so easier, so natural. It's not about just about voice activation. Let's work with both, everything we have. So multimodal interaction is important here. And again, that's why the girl is so happy. She's talking with the TV and pointing at the same time. So the last one is e-things. Okay, we have a lot of things that can be connected and can be connected to the terminal device, right? The cable terminal device, and like sensors, like actuators, and as said before, terminal device can be the control system for home automation. Okay, it can be provided as a value-added service, and it may enable e-health services when you connect blood pressure, heart, glucose monitors, and we can provide all this information to a health service or your doctor. It will enable more immersive, again, experiences, like we can control lights, thermostats, wind, smells, these kind of actuators that may provide more immersive experiences. And all of that synchronized with the content according to what is being watched on the main screen. The whole environment reacts, right? So technology here is the Internet of Media Things, right? There's some work on that. And these 6 aspects are really important, but they have something in common. All of these must be supported by the software components that will be present in the cable TV service architecture, and that will be embedded in the terminal device in most cases, or in a cloud service. So these technologies that I mentioned, those are major, but today there is no application control framework, standardized application control framework, that could provide all these features. Okay? That's why some of those IBB technologies that I listed before are evolving. Okay, so I will ask you to follow what we are doing in IRG IBB and with some work on harmonization, but also on evolution. Okay, so take a look at HBB TV, Hybridcast, Tops Media, Jinga. These technologies are constantly evolving, and some of these aspects will be included in the near future. And the best of it would be in a standardized way, right? It will be discussed here in ITU. Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. Please keep your question for a little bit later, because we still have 2 presentations. For David, it was exceptional because he had to leave. So now we can have some information from industry, from Simon Trudel. He's the Senior Director of Product Marketing from Nagra, the Kudelski Group. He drives various market development and product marketing activities for Nagra, the world's leading independent provider of content protection and multi-screen television solution designed to connect people to the content they love. His areas of focus include the next generation cloud, IP, data, and analytics-driven TV solution. In addition, Simon spearheads the Pay TV Innovation Forum. I think he will speak also about this, a global industry research program developed by Nagra for senior Pay TV executive, which explores the innovation and strategy that will drive the next phases of growth for pay TV service providers. He has more than 20 years of international software industry experiences. He holds an MBA in marketing from McGill University and is a Canadian professional engineer. So, Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this introduction, and thank you to ITU to welcome us this afternoon. Through this presentation, I will quickly draw on some of the findings of our research program that was just mentioned in the introduction of PTV Innovation Forum, and then do a deep dive into some of the technology solutions that we think are the directions of the future for cable TV in the video realm of activities. So just a quick introduction on Nagra. It's a company actually headquartered not far from Geneva in Cheseaux-sur-Lausanne. And we serve pretty much on a daily basis 500 million users with our technology as a group. The group has three major areas of activity: historical expertise in digital television under the Nagra brand. But we launched also in the past 5 years a cybersecurity division, and we've been involved under the Ski Data brand in public access for more than 20 years. So we're today a group with revenues of over $1 billion, operating across the globe and providing in the space of television a number of solutions based on user experience, content protection, protecting pretty much 40% of the pay TV market worldwide, and ensuring television services for over 550 service providers. So that puts us in the leadership position in a very challenging industry. And as we talked about today, the world of cable is evolving, the world of telco is evolving, as well as satellite distribution, free-to-air, and the rise of OTT service providers. All this new mix is changing the reality of television. And it raises really the question as do we still need to do something new in the world of cable TV in particular, and what else could we do? Because we have been, and I think we've heard today through the presentations, that there has been a number of innovations and changes that have taken place in terms of technology and services that are delivered. What else should be done? And how good are all the service providers evolving their systems around the world? I think we've seen, and we all agree as consumers, that television and the content we get on TV has never been so good. Investments are up, and the level of creativity and quality of production has gone up as well. At the same time, we could argue that we have also done, as technology providers and service providers, a lot of things to make TV watching more attractive, more enjoyable, and easy to do. And we listed here a number of innovations that have been launched over the years, from catch-up television to the PVR, to all sorts of capabilities and features that make the experience better. So we've given to consumers a lot of choice and a lot of complexity. And we have to be aware that there's a new battle going on. And if we take this example of consumer in Asia, yes, there are the traditional service providers on the left, but then there are all these new providers of content, video content, that are hitting the market and attacking basically the existing business of cable television from a different angle. And we also have to look now at content owners that are aggressively going direct to consumer and leveraging the over-the-top trend. So this means that a lot of the things have changed, and everyone in the value chain is now being quite obsessed with seducing and keeping subscribers and consumers, and making sure that the experience that is delivered is what consumers expect. And as we saw in previous presentations today, the profile of the subscribers is also evolving, changing, and is different by age group, making the equation a little bit more challenging for everybody. So the conclusion, and I think it's pretty clear, is that innovation will be the game going forward for the cable TV industry in particular. And that's why in 2016 we launched a program at NAGRA called the PTV Innovation Forum, where we settled on understanding the innovation characteristics of the industry, the winning strategies, and the emerging opportunities, and trying to get an understanding of what's happening at a worldwide level with our customers and with industry executives in the industry, in the overall media distribution and content production industry. So PTV Innovation Forum was also conducted in 2017. We've produced a new annual report. All the information about this program is available on the URL that you see on this slide, so on the NAGRA website /PTVIF in one word. A lot of the material there is free to download and read. Really the program had for objective to look at the bulk of the industry, 93% of the market, 230 some service providers, major countries around the world. And we conducted both original research and analysis, seminars, in-depth interviews, online surveys to capture the insight from different executives and produce a global report that you can download. That is a document of close to 50 pages, quite detailed with charts and quotes. So we talked to a lot of people in different parts of the world to capture that knowledge. And then we also went into a sort of a process of identifying the innovation priorities and breaking down the opportunities for service providers into 9 major categories. The column on the left is really about the classic traditional TV package. Column in the middle has looked at more the OTT dimension of services that are distributed over networks. And the third pillar looks at what we call adjacencies, the new business models that cable TV, for instance, can consider, and that some of the largest cable operators, especially in the US market, have successfully developed and entered into. So without going into all the details, I would like just now to capture some of the key trends and link this to some of the product strategies that you could consider going forward. So one of the things that came out of the research, and that's at least very important to capture, is that first, there is a clear understanding across the world that competition in the pay-TV industry is set to increase dramatically. 82% of the respondents claimed that. And at the same time, 71% of the respondents agree that growing revenues will be difficult over the next 5 years, up from 57% the year before. So we're at a change period in the industry where we go from what we would call a sort of ongoing evolution to maybe a transformation phase, to a situation where things have to accelerate and competition is actually getting a lot stronger. The other things we captured in the research is that obviously the proliferation of OTT services is changing the game quite significantly. The change as well in consumer behavior and the demands that consumers have for accessing content on multiple screens at any time, on any device, in the home, outside the home, etc., are creating a new dynamics, obviously, in the industry and setting new requirements for service providers. And the third angle that came out as well is that all this nice broadband infrastructure that we've built worldwide is also being used extensively and smartly by a new generation of pirates that have set up servers and technology to capture content in one part of the world and redistribute it to pretty much everybody else on the planet. So this is creating new challenges to the business model of the media industry, and will require specific actions going forward and further investments. If we look at the innovation paradigm of the different players in the industry, we created an index and based on the features and capabilities that are provided by different operators, we came up with this kind of chart and ranking that shows today that some of the largest operators, not just cable, but also telcos and satellite, have ticked off most of the advanced feature list, while on the right-hand side of the diagram, you can see that many smaller operators or operators in smaller countries or developing countries are clearly not at the same stage of development and actually are running behind and are probably more exposed to competition than the bigger guys. We broke this down actually by three groups of innovators, the middle ground, and the laggards, so 80, 80, 80 for about 240 operators. And we realized that the innovators are the ones are keeping investing and accelerating their investment, while the bottom third is a little bit behind and at risk, obviously, of being left, leading to potential consolidation or lost business to OTT players, some of the companies we listed at the beginning. Similar breakdown by region. I will not go through the details. I invite you to look at the research. You'll have all the fine details behind these charts. But again, emerging markets need to invest and accelerate to catch up. Looking ahead at some of the future opportunities for innovation and investment, what this chart shows is that we have actually some hot areas where service providers are putting effort at the moment to change or improve their offerings. And it's in one part in the content pricing and packaging that ranks number one, the top left corner. That means that service providers, especially in pay TV, have realized that one price, one package for all subscribers will not work going forward. Personalization of packages and smarter consumer marketing will be required. So that means that the technology behind it will have to evolve to provide that kind of flexibility that consumers expect. We talked a lot earlier about the phenomenon happening in the US cable where people cut the cord because the price is too high. But it's also one of the reasons why the price is too high is that there is only one price for everybody and no other options to access a subset of the content that people with less revenues would like to have. And that has led to actually the launch of skinny bundles and other options that actually make it possible for service providers to address the full market and not just 60 or 70% of the consumer market. So that means as well that in terms of content proposition, number 3 on this chart, there are some investments that are being made, and also tying to the research previously showed today, onboarding OTT content is becoming an important strategy. But you also need to have the right technology to do it right. Same thing for multi-screen TV everywhere. Consumers expect their content to be available on their phone, on other devices, in the home, outside of the living room. And that implies a quality of experience and a set of features comparable to what they have on their set-top box, with access to on-demand content and live in a very convenient and efficient way, while at the same time being able to switch from one device to another to keep watching what they like. So just 3 examples that show that service providers have identified the key areas where they have to focus. Investments are going to take place. Many leaders have already committed and started upgrading their platforms and going in that direction. And we really think that the rest of the industry should follow. As we could see here, commercial innovation and product innovation are the 2 legs on which service providers are going to run going forward. What solutions to address these challenges? Well, we asked a question about innovation. What else could we possibly do? Well, one thing to remember is that the game is going to be tougher than it used to be. So don't bring a knife to a gunfight. It will be a tougher, more competitive environment than ever before. Technology that you provide as service providers will have to be up to the expectations of consumers that are used to the YouTube experience, to the Netflix, to the Amazon one. The other key aspect is that scale and presence, young and fresh style, service innovation, velocity, all of this has to transpire through your products and the solutions you bring to market. It's going to be about consumer centricity and consumer intimacy to the point that it can be a little bit frightening in terms of the data you need to collect, but that's going to be the name of the game going forward. So in terms of the technology bricks, it's frictionless bring your own device, it's smart IPification of your networks, it's data-driven innovation as well. And that means that you need to set a single service creation and management backend that will allow you to manage all forms of content, linear and on demand, deliver it over an efficient network. Most of it could be IP-based, although in many cases in cable we will have still DVB and hybrid infrastructure in place that can be easily leveraged and smartly leveraged. But the trend is obviously going for more and more IP delivery. And from a consumer standpoint, it has to be a single experience. So earlier this year, actually in IBC 2017, we introduced a new offering called the OpenTV Suite and the Signature Edition. It's the result of several years of investment at NAGRA to bring content to the big screen and other screens, leveraging existing technology and devices, cloud, IP, and data to make this kind of user experience we just talked about a reality for service providers. So OpenTV Signature Edition is a complete and pre-integrated PTV entertainment solution. It features obviously 4K content, TV everywhere, and strong multi-device capabilities. It has also one important feature, which is the capability to provide navigation either for traditional channel surfing or more what we call modern, redefined discovery based on mood, theme, and your interests for content. So you can access channels and VOD through a more classic experience, traditional channel, flicking an EPG on one side, or go straight into a portal and then consume what you like and be exposed to other examples of linear television or other programs that are available. And this duplicity means that you can address all consumers in all needs, all age groups, and we feel that this is absolutely key going forward. It comes with a bunch of advanced services from replay TV, catch-up TV, and personalization. And obviously, it is designed to be operated with, from the back-end perspective, with a mindset of maximizing value and monetization for the service provider. It includes advanced analytics and data intelligence, leveraging AI platforms as well. We also think that you have service providers to fight the battle with the same tools that the Netflix of the world use, data. So to conclude this presentation, NAGRA, historically known for its expertise in content protection and security, still applies these technologies to securing the business model of operators. But we're also adding another layer, which is really the user experience under the OpenTV brand, and solid intelligence and artificial intelligence platform with the Insight product that we're investing in as well. So that's what I wanted to share with you in terms of the strategies and the technologies that can be deployed to for cable operators to get ready for the years to come and to fight off new forms of competition that are emerging. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Simon. I need back this 5 minutes. So it was really very interesting to see the industry view and also this summary of the report, because I'm sure that it will be very interesting for everybody, and maybe we can download and check. So we have the next speaker, who is Peter Wallop. He is ITU expert, and I have the privilege that I worked with him, and I hope I will still work with him together in several subjects. He has over 20 years of experience in the broadcast and telecom markets and led many service launches and company restructuring processes. As an ITU expert, he assisted Africa, Asian and Caribbean countries with the introduction of digital broadcasting, Angola, Bhutan, Burundi, Cambodia, Ethiopia, Jamaica, Thailand, Rwanda. I stop here. And he is co-author of the following ITU reports, the guidelines on the transition from analog to digital broadcasting. This is, I can say, it's a kind of Bible when we are assisting the countries for the digital broadcasting transition. Digital dividend insights for spectrum decision and interactive multimedia services in Asia Pacific, trends and insights. He also assisted key broadcast players in Sweden, Belgium, and also he worked in Serbia to help in the implementation of the television switchover. He worked for the Dutch broadcast network operator as deputy CEO before, and he also worked for the Hewlett-Packard in the UK. I think I stop because then your 15 minutes is over. Right. So Peter, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Peter. It's the last presentation, and it is about mobile TV. I think we addressed before here in this conference that mobile TV or mobile services should be part of a converged service offering of cable operators, and I'm gonna focus in this presentation on mobile TV, and TV in the sense of linear TV services, because we all know mobile, you can use that as video on demand to consume video on demand, but I'm going to focus on linear TV on the mobile. Now, and we're going to have a look at the technical perspective, what kind of technologies are basically carrying those services. And then last is the consumer perspective. What does the consumer think of it? And the big question for me is there really an inherent demand for linear TV services on a mobile? Now, this is a question that has been tested for many years. And I think that we started 15 years ago, starting and testing that if there is television for mobile. Now, let's have a look at the technologies. Now, this is a complicated chart, but that is basically two solutions, two technical solutions that can deliver mobile television services. And one is a hybrid solution. You use now LTE or 3G to deliver the video on demand or the personalized content, and the linear TV you deliver by a broadcast platform. Now, and there are many standards for delivering television services over a broadcast platform, and that is what is indicated here in the screen as MTV. And you see here that there is an example there, and that is TDMB in Korea, South Korea. And that is the only example, because this is still operational in Korea. But a few years ago, there were many other examples, and there was the example of Not TV in Japan, and that was carried by ISDBT MMM, and that was actually delivered by Docomo in Japan, but they stopped in 2016. That may be an indicator already. So that is one. You have a hybrid solution to deliver mobile television services, and the other, and that is the latest, that is you have a 4 or 5G network to deliver any service, whether it is linear or video on demand, and that is here indicated as an integrated solution. Now, and you see here again Korea, and Korea is, to my opinion, really leading in this market, and KT, the incumbent telecom operator in Korea, delivers a truly converged service package where you can watch telly or video on demand on any platform you like, at home or on the move. Now, and on the move they use also Wi-Fi. I think it's called Vibro in South Korea, is another standard they use, but they also use what is part of the 4G, that is LTE eMBMS, and I will now say LTE broadcast. And that is what you need for that is LTE advanced, that can aggregate bandwidth, and you need a mobile that can handle that, and you need to download a little bit of software and you're in the game. So there are two solutions to deliver that. So a hybrid or an integrated way. Now, and for the user, and you see here, this is South Korea. On the left, you see the service delivery over a hybrid solution, and on the right, it is on the integrated platform, so LTE broadcast. And what does this picture show? That for the user, he doesn't see any difference in functionality. And on the left is TDME Smart. That is smart TDME. And why is that called smart? Because there are two smart things about it, is that they enhance the picture quality by taking a little bit of capacity from the 4G network to enhance the capacity, because the TDMB standard is a very old standard and can't really deliver high quality pictures, and therefore they use the 4G network to enhance. And what they say, that the advantage is that you don't eat up all your data. The other thing, what is smart, is that channel selection is not done by changing the receiver. What they do is you select the different services over the over the LTE network, so that they can collect user data, because that was something that was broadcast network lack. You have no interaction back from what the user is watching. Now, they were very smart in South Korea, and they say, we can also use the 4G network to deliver us that user experience data. Now, on the right, that's all integrated, is simpler. And that is actually on this slide. On the right, on the left, you see the hybrid. And what is the complication with hybrid is the synchronization between the two platforms. You have a broadcast platform and, now let's say, a 4G network. And you have to synchronize the data that is carried over the broadcast network and over the switched or the LTE network. And you need a mediation platform for that. Now, in the past, I used to work for Accenture, and I was involved in building a mediation platform for 3i in Italy. And that cost a lot of money, because there were no standards, no solutions available. That was a tailor-made system, and that makes it a very complicated solution. Now, that in LTE broadcast, you don't have that problem anymore. It is an integrated solution, and I would say the advantage of LTE broadcast is that it is more flexible than the broadcast-based solution, because in an LTE network, you have cells, and you can switch an individual cell to broadcast mode. Don't forget that if you have LTE broadcast, it acts in that cell that you switch to broadcast mode, just like any broadcast solution. It is a one-way, so one-to-many solution. And so there is no, and that was in the past when we were talking about UMTS, there is a capacity constraint when you deliver live TV over switched networks. That is not the case with LTE broadcast. That cell, when you switch it, a part of the capacity to broadcast, you switch it really to broadcast mode. So it doesn't matter if you have one viewer or 100 million viewers. And for both solutions, the rationale is we want to offload traffic. And the video traffic, we heard it before, that is eating up a lot of capacity. So the ideas of this solution is we need a broadcast platform to offload that traffic. Now, I would say the advantage of LTE broadcast that it is an integrated solution. Now, from a business perspective, if you're a mobile operator, you have to consider, do you want to switch to broadcast mode? Now, in the past, telecom operators were not so keen in switching what they call unicast, that carries data, to switch that to broadcast mode, because they said broadcast, there is no money. In the past, I would say now 3 to 4 years, unicast traffic was considered more valuable. I think that has changed nowadays, and we'll come back to that later in the second part. So what do consumers think of this? Because I would say that is the key question. Now, this is a nice chart of the development of mobile phones. And now the people that recognize Nokia's and Ericsson. No, that says something about your age, I would say. I do recognize all these mobile phones. And I was actually involved with Nokia in launching the Nokia 92, because that was still based on DVB-H. And that was a handheld that you had to that you could unfold, and then you could sit down on your desktop and watch telly. Now, Nokia at that time was the market leader. They could just push that into the market, and consumers would follow. I would say at that time, that's around 2003, the technology was very limited because the screen resolution was very low. It was not a very compact or large device, and you see that later on, and I've mentioned them, Docomo in Japan launched Not TV in 2013 on the basis of ISDBT MMM, so there was a hybrid solution. And at that time, now we had already high resolution screens. Now, and a little bit later, in the neighboring country, KT launched OLED TV on the basis of LTE broadcast. And they tried, you see that these companies, and there were more companies in Europe, we all tried DVB-H. We keep trying to launch this. Now, and what this says, I think that we can't say as an excuse, the technology was not matured enough, because I guess that in 2003 we didn't have the right technology in place. I think we don't have that excuse any longer. And on top of that, I think that consumer behavior, I think it was addressed here before, also changed over time. And that is illustrated in these two pictures below, and that is the election of the Pope. And now, in 2005, Pope Benedict. Which one is that? What is it, 10, 15, 16? Is that 16? Yeah, 16. Was elected. And we saw in the crowd only one screen. And then in 2013, a couple of years later, it was full of screens. And I think we can not say that was just the young people, because who goes to a Pope election? I think this illustrates that really we have changed in how we consume media. So, it is not only the young kids that have a mobile and uses it all the time. Right. Then what are people watching on that mobile phone now? And that is what you see here on this chart is mainly video on demand, and that is not a surprise. I would say people watch mainly content that lasts 5 minutes or less. And you see on the right, on the set-top box, on the television screen, whether it is a connected TV set or connected through a set-top box, we watch long-form content. And so, I was with Eastone in Thailand, and Thailand now has just launched DVB-T2, digital terrestrial television, and there was also the discussion: should we launch mobile TV? Because with DVB-T2, you have DVB-T2 Lite, which is designed for mobile TV delivery. And we had the discussion like, should we really do that in Thailand? And then the question is there an inherent demand for linear TV? And not video on demand. I think that doesn't need that much discussion. I think that people do watch video on demand services on a mobile, but linear TV. And what was the core of that? If it is just for premium content, because that was the discussion, it is just for premium content, so watching a football game. And then if you look at the demand of that type of content, it is very spiky, because it is not 24 hours that we watch football and football that we like. If you come to the conclusion that this sort of premium content is suitable for watching on mobile, then it is a very spiky demand. Then LTE broadcast is a much better solution, because you can switch temporarily to the broadcast mode. Now, and I think that nowadays telecom operators watch that a little bit differently to switch to broadcast mode, because I think that video service or rich multimedia service